Well, now that we can finally, converge once again, I guess it's about time to start partying again. So, yeah, let's dive into this one. God is Partying by Andrew W.K. So, Andrew W.K. is a rock artist that got his start in the early 2000s. And if you want to feel old, his first album came out 20 years ago this year. So, yeah. And we come to his sixth full-length studio album with God is Partying. I have to admit, I am a very late comer to the Andrew W.K. party. I really got introduced to him with his 2018 release of You're Not Alone. I loved how almost aggressively optimistic and pump up the jam it was. Very motivational poster sentiments to it. And so I was really looking forward to anything else that Andrew W.K. had done, because I'd gone back and I've listened to a couple of albums here and there from him, but nothing really hit me the same way as You Are Not Alone. And so with this new album of God is Partying, I was pretty excited to hear what the kind of new music from Andrew would be. And coming from the album cover alone, it's a little bit of a departure. And that's kind of what I'm feeling on this album. In some cases, it is very, paint by numbers Andrew W.K. in being a very large sound. I mean, Andrew is providing all the instruments on here. The sound is very big. It's very large. It's very loud. And that was something that he captured very well within the past. So he's very talented at creating this big, large sound. The only difference, though, this time around is it's a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more dark in tone. This starts the album off with Everybody Sins, and right away we have these more meaty, more metal guitar works. In some cases, this switch up in terms of tone does work very well. I mean, this larger sound works very well in a more gritty, powerhouse, metal-like style. It's very similar to some of the sounds that Ghost was putting on, especially within Everybody Sins, the first track, with some more synths in the background that provide a lot of the atmosphere on this. And in some cases, the actual messaging here is don't get down on yourself because everybody sins. Nobody's perfect. This does open up the overall concept of the album of God is Partying, and kind of more of a religious approach to that, dealing with death and items like that. And we see that on tracks like Everybody Sins, Babylon, I'm in Heaven, My Tower, Goddess Partying. And this is also seen within the second track of Babylon, and it really does hold out that same kind of drive within the guitar works. Again, very metal induced, very driven. The energy is extremely infectious on that. I'm loving when it gets to the chorus work, how large everything sounds. And we have, again, those Ghost overlaid synths that permeate this track to really elevate it to something very special. But I can't help but kind of get out of the track slightly just because of how almost overly aggressive some of the vocal works and musical presentations are on this. I don't know, it's a different flavor that I'm used to, especially within Andrew W.K.'s work, that I'm wondering how it will age. We come into the third track of No One Knows, and again, that big sound permeates this even more. We're getting the flavors. It's a little bit less energetic than we've had from Everybody Sins in Babylon, but that big sound is definitely still here with the big shining guitars, big meaty synths on there. It has a little bit more of a intimate side that we're used to with Andrew W.K. I mean, Andrew is always showing it, wearing his heart on his sleeve, essentially, within a lot of these tracks. And No One to Know has that, and it even bleeds more with Stay True to Your Heart, one of the more intimate, somber tracks on here. It has that same kind of essence that No One Knows, and being a little bit more subdued, not quite as energetic as the first two tracks, but it does have that sticking point, that more be true to yourself, don't try to be somebody you're not, again, the very motivational poster that Andrew likes to do. And we have a little bit of an interlude with God is Partying, which is really just like a synth synthwave atmospheric soundscape, which I appreciate. I always love when a band is able to do this, just to kind of pass the baton, give a little bit of like a palate cleanser before we go into another track, which is really needed because those last two tracks, or I guess last three tracks, No One Knows, No One to Know, and Stay True to Your Heart, were more somber. I'm in Heaven is one of the more aggressive tracks on here, even more so than Babylon or Everybody Sins. It's very aggressive in terms of vocalizations. It does feel as though Andrew is literally yelling into the microphone on here, and it's very chuggy. It's very metal in that approach. You know, you've got that chugging guitar. I'm almost thinking of like the Stank face, where you're just like... And when we leave that track, we come into Remember Your Oath, which, again, it's a little bit more of a anthem track in that sense. I mean, Andrew's always good at writing a good anthem track. Remember Your Oath is just more of like remember your oath to yourself rather than hold up your side of the bargain for somebody else. But then we come to probably my favorite track on the album, the 8th track of My Tower. I'm loving the soundscapes that we have on here. The synths that start this album are very reminiscent of like Rick Wakeman, especially within his Six Wives of King Henry VIII. You're getting that more juicy, very overlaid of tones tracks on there. And I love how this track builds itself up to a brilliant finale within the guitar works. Like, I love when this track opens itself up. It is still darker. You can see lots of shades of grays and blacks on here, which is so odd for Andrew, which is just full of color. And I love that guitar outro. And the guitar outro for Remember Your Oath is also quite tasty, but I think that Andrew's been holding off on his big guitar licks until My Tower, which I love. Like, again, I think it's a great blending, and I love how it has this clear stop that then has this little bit of like an outro before we come into the last track of And Then We Blew Apart, which itself is a very interesting track. I love how it kind of summarizes the album overall. I like how, again, it creates and maintains that big soundscape, that big, large atmosphere, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more heavy, a little bit more dark, while still allowing for a really great package deal. And it does kind of showcase how Andrew was going into this album with, I guess, his frustration with the world overall. You know, and the one thing that I love about the last track of And Then We Blew Apart is just how theatrical it is. Like, I can see a lot of people seeing this track as being cringe, as being just over the top and overblown and over dramatic. But for me, I love how operatic it is. I love how almost show tunes it is. And at no point does it ever feel melodramatic or over sincered or anything like cringe, but I could see how some people might take this track as being that. We do have 3 bonus tracks of I Made It, Not Anymore, and Everybody Sins Radio Edition, and they're fine. I like that they're like add-ons that I can see why Andrew didn't include them into the full of the album proper, and I like the fact that he didn't include them in the album proper, because with these 9 tracks, we have about 40 minutes of proper music that I could put on the turntable, flip the album over once, and be done with it, and have about, you know, that 40 minutes worth of really, really good music, rather than trying to pack this album. Overall, I'm not as much of a fan of this album as I am with You're Not Alone. I still enjoyed it. I like this new direction that Andrew was trying with this one. I don't know if he's going to continue on with this. Probably not. But yeah, I like that it has a little bit more teeth. I like that it's a little bit more dark. I don't know, for a musical landscape that I think is craving so much optimism, I'm kind of disappointed that Andrew didn't lean more into that. But what we have here is still some amazing songs in this more larger, big arena-sized settings of this Pump Up the Jam metal music. I think overall, I really enjoyed this album. I think it's a great time. I would recommend it. And I would probably say that God is Partying by Andrew W.K. is one that I would easily download. I mean, I would probably pick this up in physical format if I found it, but I'm not going to run out to get it. This is one that I would just download first, have some time with it, and if I saw it in passing, then I would go and pick it up, but I wouldn't go to the record store specifically for this album. So that's kind of where I'm at for God is Partying from Andrew W.K. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. And yeah, that's all I've got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.